My name is Rachel Matthews, and I'm 38 years old. On paper, my life looks perfect. A steady career in logistics management, a comfortable home in a peaceful neighborhood where the sounds of children's laughter and the hum of bicycles fill the evening air. 2 cars parked in the driveway, a neat little house, a clean credit score, and a fiancé named Matthew who, to the outside world, is the epitome of charm and success. Matthew is 36. He's a real estate agent with an easy smile and a warm laugh that makes people feel immediately at ease. To the world, he's the perfect man. Everyone loves him. He remembers everyone's birthdays, makes friends effortlessly, and always seems to know exactly the right thing to say. I was proud to call him my fiancé. We'd been together for 7 years, and from the outside, our relationship was flawless. But recently, I started to notice things. Small things at first, little inconsistencies that didn't quite add up, like the way Matthew would get lost in his phone, sneaking glances at it during dinner, his focus drifting when we were supposed to be talking. I didn't think much of it initially. Maybe it was just stress from work, maybe I was being paranoid. But over time, the pattern became harder to ignore. Then it happened. "Guess who messaged me today?" Matthew said one evening, holding his phone in front of my face with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Garrett." I could feel the tension in my chest immediately. Garrett was Matthew's high school sweetheart. They'd been inseparable during senior year, the golden couple everyone admired. But that was years ago, long before we'd met. I'd always figured he was just another part of Matthew's past, something I didn't need to worry about. But as soon as Matthew said the name, something shifted. The way he said it wasn't just a passing mention. There was a hint of something else underneath the casual tone, something buried but very much alive. He was excited but also guarded. He knew I'd notice. We dated senior year," Matthew continued, seemingly oblivious to the way my fingers tightened around my glass. "He's divorced now too. Can you believe it?" I forced a smile. "That's nice, I guess." He didn't seem to notice the chill in my voice as he scrolled through his phone, his fingers tapping the screen with the kind of urgency that only comes from a message thread you can't put down. Over the next few weeks, their texting escalated. Late-night notifications that made his phone buzz on the nightstand, giggles at his screen while we ate dinner. And when I'd ask him what was so funny, he'd brush me off with a quick, "Oh, nothing, just reminiscing." But the truth was starting to eat at me. Something didn't feel right. The real blow came 2 weeks before his high school reunion. "So Garrett and I are going to arrive together," Matthew announced one morning at breakfast, his tone so casual you'd think he was discussing the weather. "Just as friends, of course. For old time's sake. Everyone always says we were the cutest couple senior year." I set down my coffee mug, trying to mask the flood of emotion that rushed through me. "You want to go to your reunion with your ex instead of your fiancé?" My voice came out sharper than I intended, but it was impossible to keep the hurt out of it. Matthew's eyes widened slightly. Then he gave me that smile, the one that was supposed to calm me down, the one he always used when I was being too sensitive. "Don't be insecure, Rachel," he said, his voice thick with irritation. "It's literally just walking through a door. It's nostalgic, that's all. Everyone does it." His words stung more than I expected. Everyone does it. That was his justification for all of this. "You're being controlling," Matthew added with a roll of his eyes, as if I were the one making this weird. I stayed silent, trying to make sense of what he was saying. He was going to his reunion with his ex, and I was supposed to be fine with it. The thought made my stomach churn. But this wasn't just about the reunion. It was about everything that had been happening in the weeks leading up to it. The way Matthew was pulling away, the way his attention was constantly divided. It was as if he was already mentally checking out of our relationship, preparing for something I wasn't supposed to see. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Matthew slept peacefully beside me, his phone clutched in his hand like a lifeline. I thought about the past 7 years, the plans we'd made, the future we'd talked about, and I wondered how we'd gotten here, to this moment where I felt like a stranger in my own relationship. Part of me wanted to confront him right then and there, to shake him awake and demand answers. But another part of me knew that I needed to be smart about this. I needed to understand what I was dealing with before I made any moves. So I stayed quiet, I watched, I waited, and I started to plan. Because if Matthew thought he could treat me like an afterthought while he paraded around with his ex-boyfriend, he had another thing coming. I wasn't going to sit back and let him rewrite our story without me in it. If he wanted to play games, then I would show him exactly how the game was played. Little did he know, the reunion was about to become a night neither of us would ever forget. But the next bombshell was still coming, and it would push me past the point of no return. 3 days before the reunion, Matthew dropped another bombshell. We were sitting down for dinner when he casually mentioned, "So, we're going to get ready at Garrett's place. It's closer to the venue. We'll have some old friends over, make it a pre-party thing." I almost choked on my food. "What? You're getting ready at his apartment?" He didn't even look up from his phone as he continued to scroll. "Yeah, it's easier. You wouldn't know anyone there anyway. It's no big deal." No big deal. Getting ready at his ex-boyfriend's apartment before walking into their reunion together, arm in arm, like they were still the golden couple from senior year. And I was supposed to accept this. I was supposed to smile and nod and pretend that my fiancé wasn't slowly erasing me from his life. His words stung, though he had no idea what they did to me. But I stayed silent, my mind already racing with the implications. This wasn't just about nostalgia anymore. This was about something deeper, something Matthew wasn't willing to admit, perhaps even to himself. That evening, I reached out to my friend Jessica. Jessica worked at the same company as me, and we'd become close over coffee breaks, bonding over spreadsheets, corporate politics, and the occasional rant about life. She was sharp, successful, and fiercely loyal. If there was anyone who would understand what I was going through, it was her. When I explained what was happening, she set down her latte and stared at me in disbelief. "Let me get this straight," she said slowly. "Your fiancé is attending his reunion with his ex-boyfriend, getting ready at his ex's apartment, and he told you not to come because you wouldn't know anyone?" I nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle over me. "That's not nostalgia, Rachel. That's audacity." She leaned back in her chair, her eyes glinting with something almost mischievous. "So, what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to just let it go. Maybe I'm overreacting." "You're not overreacting," Jessica said firmly. "You've been with this man for 7 years. You're engaged. And he's choosing to walk into a room full of people with someone else on his arm instead of you. That's not a small thing." She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing something and doing something about it were two entirely different things. "What if you showed up anyway?" Jessica asked, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if we went together, as each other's plus ones? You have every right to be there, Rachel. You're his fiancé. And if he's going to make a statement by showing up with Garrett, then maybe you should make a statement of your own." The idea was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. For so long, I had been the accommodating partner, the one who smoothed over conflicts and made excuses for Matthew's behavior. But maybe it was time to stop being so accommodating. Maybe it was time to show him that I wasn't going to be pushed aside. "What exactly are you suggesting?" I asked carefully. Jessica grinned. "I'm suggesting we show up looking absolutely stunning, fashionably late, confident, together. We don't make a scene, we don't cause drama, we simply exist in that space and let Matthew realize exactly what he's risking by taking you for granted." It was elegant in its simplicity. No confrontation, no accusations, just presence, just visibility, just a quiet, undeniable reminder that I wasn't invisible. "I'm in," I said. Over the next 3 days, we planned everything meticulously. The timing of our arrival, the outfits we would wear, the way we would carry ourselves. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity. It was about refusing to be erased. The morning of the reunion, Matthew was gone before I even woke up. He had left early to meet Garrett, and I couldn't help but notice how giddy he'd been the night before. His enthusiasm was palpable, and I wondered if he even realized how obvious his excitement was. I went about my day keeping busy, pretending to be calm, but deep down, I was steeling myself for what was coming. I wasn't going to be the passive, neglected fiancé anymore. Tonight, Matthew would see a different Rachel. At 6:45, I texted Jessica. He just left. Let's do this. At exactly 7, I was ready. I slipped into my dress, a sleek black number that made me feel confident and powerful. I did my hair and makeup meticulously, not to impress anyone at the reunion, but to remind myself of who I was. A woman who deserved better than being someone's afterthought. Jessica picked me up looking stunning in an emerald green dress. She was the perfect picture of elegance and strength. We didn't need to speak much. The plan was clear, and the anticipation between us was electric. As we drove toward the venue, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Matthew. "Having a great time. See you later tonight." I stared at the message for a long moment, then put my phone away. He had no idea what was coming. We arrived at the venue at 7:32, perfectly timed to make our entrance just as the cocktail hour was getting underway. As we stepped out of the car, I took a deep breath. This was it. No turning back. The moment we stepped into the ballroom, I could feel the shift in the atmosphere. The room was elegant, decorated with silver and navy banners celebrating the class reunion. Clusters of people stood around high-top tables, drinks in hand, their laughter and chatter creating a warm buzz of nostalgia. But as Jessica and I walked through the entrance, conversations began to pause. Heads turned. Eyes followed us across the room. I linked my arm through Jessica's, walking with deliberate confidence. My heart was pounding, but I refused to let it show. Every step felt like it was under a spotlight, but I held my head high. And then I saw him. Matthew was standing near the photo backdrop with Garrett, laughing at something on Garrett's phone. His hand rested casually on Garrett's shoulder in a way that felt too familiar, too intimate. Garrett was exactly what I had imagined. Tall, well-dressed, with the kind of easy confidence that comes from knowing you were once the center of someone's world. When Matthew looked up and saw me, his expression shifted immediately. Confusion first, then shock, then something that looked almost like panic. I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. I simply smiled and continued walking toward the bar with Jessica. "That got his attention," Jessica murmured beside me. "Good," I replied. At the bar, we ordered drinks and settled into easy conversation, pretending not to notice the whispers around us. But I was acutely aware of Matthew's eyes on me. He kept glancing over, clearly trying to figure out what was happening and why I was there when I was supposed to be at home, waiting for him like always. It took him about 10 minutes to work up the courage to approach us. "Rachel," he said, his voice tight, "I didn't know you were coming. I decided last minute," I said calmly. "Jessica needed a +1, and I thought, why not? It's your reunion after all. I should be here to support you." The words were perfectly innocent, but the implication was clear. I should have been here all along, as his partner, not waiting at home while he played pretend with his ex. Matthew's jaw tightened. "Can we talk? Privately?" "Of course," I said sweetly. "But the superlatives are about to start. Let's talk after." Before he could respond, the DJ announced the beginning of the superlatives ceremony, a tradition where they recognized various classmates for humorous and nostalgic categories. Matthew had no choice but to return to his seat near Garrett, though he kept glancing back at me with barely concealed frustration. The categories were mostly lighthearted, most likely to still live with their parents, most likely to show up late. The crowd laughed and cheered as former classmates took their playful victories in stride. Then came the category that changed everything, most changed since high school. The slide appeared on the projector screen, and I watched as 2 photos materialized side by side. On the left was Matthew's senior portrait, young and hopeful. On the right was Garrett's, equally golden and carefree. The announcer, a former classmate named Derek, grinned into the microphone. Now, we all remember these two as the inseparable couple of senior year, the ones who made us all believe in true love. He paused for effect. But here's the update. Matthew is now a successful real estate agent engaged to a wonderful woman named Rachel, who is actually here tonight. Wave, Rachel. I raised my hand and smiled graciously as the crowd applauded. And Garrett, Derek continued, his tone shifting slightly. Well, he's been through a few career changes and a divorce, but he's still got that same smile, right? The applause for Garrett was noticeably thinner. I saw him shift uncomfortably in his seat, and Matthew's face had gone pale. But Derek wasn't finished. What's really impressive is Rachel herself. She's here with her colleague Jessica Chen, who was just promoted to vice president of operations at her company. Talk about a power duo. The crowd cheered again, and I saw something shift in Matthew's expression. For the first time all night, he looked genuinely uncertain. After the ceremony, Matthew found me by the dessert table. His composure had cracked, and I could see the desperation in his eyes. "Why are you doing this?" he asked quietly. "Doing what?" I replied evenly. "Attending my fiancé's reunion, being proud of my successful friend, existing in a space where I have every right to be. You know what I mean?" "No, Matthew, I really don't." I set down my plate and looked him directly in the eyes. "You chose to come here with Garrett instead of me. You chose to get ready at his apartment. You chose to make me feel like I didn't belong in your life. And now you're upset because I decided to show up anyway?" He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. "I'm not causing a scene," I continued. "I'm not making accusations. I'm simply here. And if that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourself why." I walked away, leaving him standing there in silence. The drive home was quiet. Jessica dropped me off around 10, and I entered an empty house. Matthew was still at the reunion, probably trying to salvage whatever remained of his carefully constructed evening. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the porch, letting the cool night air settle around me as I processed everything that had happened. For 7 years, I had loved Matthew. I had built a life with him, made sacrifices for him, and believed that our future was solid. But tonight had shown me something I could no longer ignore. Somewhere along the way, I had become invisible to him, an accessory rather than a partner, someone to be managed rather than cherished. Around midnight, I heard the rumble of his car pulling into the driveway. I stayed on the porch, watching as he stumbled out of the driver's seat. He had clearly been drinking, though not so much that he couldn't function. Behind him, Garrett's car pulled up, and I watched as the two of them exchanged words through the window. Garrett leaned in slightly, his hand reaching for Matthew's arm, but Matthew pulled away. Whatever had happened between them, whatever Matthew had been chasing, it seemed like he was finally waking up to reality. When he came inside, he found me sitting in the living room, my wine glass nearly empty. "You're still awake," he said, his voice hoarse. "I wanted to talk." He collapsed onto the couch across from me, his head in his hands. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "I messed up," he finally admitted. "I know I did." "Do you?" I asked quietly. "Yes." He looked up at me, and I saw something I hadn't expected. Genuine remorse. I don't know what I was thinking. Garrett messaged me, and suddenly I was 17 again. I got caught up in something that doesn't even exist anymore. "That's not an excuse, Matthew." I know it's not." He rubbed his face with his hands. "When I saw you walk in tonight with Jessica looking like that, I realized how stupid I've been. You were right there, and I was chasing a ghost." I set down my wine glass. "Do you love him?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unavoidable. "No," Matthew said after a pause. "I thought maybe I still felt something, but I don't. Not really, it was just nostalgia, just this stupid fantasy about being young again." "And me?" I pressed. "Where do I fit into that fantasy?" He was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't know. I think I forgot to include you." The honesty of his answer hit me harder than any excuse would have. He hadn't been malicious, he had simply stopped seeing me, and in some ways, that was worse. "I need time," I said finally. "I need to figure out what I want. Rachel, please, we can work through this." "Maybe," I replied, "but not tonight, and not until you figure out whether you actually want this life or whether you're just going through the motions." He didn't argue, he just nodded, looking more defeated than I had ever seen him. Over the following weeks, we tried. We went to couples counseling. We had long, difficult conversations about where we had gone wrong. But the truth was, the foundation had cracked too deeply. Matthew had shown me who he was when he thought no one was watching, and I couldn't unsee it. 3 months later, I moved out. It wasn't dramatic. There were no screaming matches or bitter accusations. Just two people who had finally admitted that love wasn't enough if it came without respect. Jessica helped me find a new apartment, and I started rebuilding my life on my own terms. It was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. A year later, I ran into Matthew at a coffee shop. He looked good, more settled somehow. He told me he had been doing therapy, working on himself, trying to understand why he had sabotaged something good. "I'm glad," I told him honestly. "I hope you find what you're looking for." "I think I already had it," he said quietly. "I just didn't know how to hold on to it." We parted ways amicably, two people who had once shared everything and now shared only the memory of what could have been. Looking back, I don't regret the reunion. I don't regret showing up with Jessica or forcing Matthew to confront the truth he had been avoiding. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is refuse to be invisible, refuse to be sidelined, refuse to accept less than you deserve. That night taught me something important. You can't make someone see your worth, but you can make sure you never forget it yourself. And that's exactly what I did. I learned something important that night. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about anger or manipulation. It's not about screaming or crying or begging someone to see your worth. Sometimes the best revenge is simply showing up when they least expect it, standing tall when they thought you'd crumble, refusing to disappear when they've already written you out of the story. Matthew wanted me to be invisible. He wanted me to stay home, stay quiet, and let him relive a fantasy that had nothing to do with our future. But I refused. And in refusing, I discovered something I had forgotten somewhere along the way. My worth was never dependent on his attention. My value was never tied to whether he chose me or someone else. I had spent so long trying to be the perfect partner that I forgot to be my own person first. The reunion wasn't about humiliating Matthew or proving a point. It was about reminding myself that I deserved to take up space, that I had every right to exist loudly, confidently, and unapologetically in any room I walked into. And when I finally walked away from that relationship, I didn't walk away broken, I walked away free. So if you're reading this and you see yourself in my story, if you're sitting at home right now wondering why you're never enough for someone who should love you unconditionally, let me tell you something. You are enough. You've always been enough. And the moment you start believing that, everything changes. Don't wait for someone else to choose you. Choose yourself first, always. If this story hit close to home, drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself in a relationship? Have you ever realized too late that you deserved better? I want to hear your stories. And if you haven't already, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story. We post new stories every week, real stories about love, betrayal, revenge, and everything in between. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Sometimes a story can change everything. Until next time, remember, your worth isn't measured by how others treat you. It's measured by how you treat yourself. See you in the next one.